So in the previous episode, we looked at human evolutions and the sentient singularity, and we spoke about the migration of advanced humans, modern humans, Homo sapiens as we call them, out of Africa. And this time we're going to look in more detail about the dispersion of humans across the rest of the world. Humans originated in East Africa, obviously spread to other parts of Africa first, and then crossed the Red Sea barrier to reach Eurasia. And these numbers indicate how many thousands of years ago the first humans went to these places. And since there were other types of proto-humans in some of these areas, humans either interbred with those or outcompeted those, but there were Neanderthals, Denisovians, etc., that did in fact interbreed with Homo sapiens, modern humans. Perhaps that was one of the contributory factors of why there are different races of humans today. Some of that was climatic, but some of that might indicate different fractional interbreeding with other proto-human species. Now, before we go too far on a chart like this, these charts are actually used in modern political discourse to justify certain types of racism. So if you go to those white supremacist websites like Stormfront or the Unz Review, they use charts like this to justify very racist beliefs in that the further back a type of human evolved, the less intelligent they must be. So people from the north are obviously the smartest, and people from where humans originated are the least intelligent, and all the other races of humans occupy a hierarchy in between these two extremes. And then they use that to justify a lot of very racist belief systems and output. Now that is very pseudoscientific. They take a couple of scientific facts and then add about 20 times as much political dogma that's very selective. All the anecdotes that contradict their thesis are conveniently ignored. And I may do other videos in other playlists that teach people how to debate against these neo-Nazi type of people who have these types of views, but that is definitely not something we're going to talk about in this playlist. But charts like these are used to justify why there is an intelligence and even quality and worthiness hierarchy among the different races of humans by those racists. And that is both very unscientific and very derogatory towards all races of people, including the northernmost people, because they are saddled with that fraction of bigoted people in their ranks that they have to continuously distance themselves from. Those white supremacist type people who are on Stormfront and the Unz Review are generally very unsuccessful in their real lives. They represent the bottom 10% of white people, and they're all men. There's no women among their ranks, which is also indicative of how valid their race-centric ideology is. But anyway, this was the dispersion, and the population of humans into the Western Hemisphere over this land bridge 25,000 years ago led to a certain spreading across North America and South America, and the number of humans from which all indigenous people of the Americas, all Native Americans and indigenous people in South America, etc., are descended from, was a very small number. Some say it's as low as 30 to 70 people that all Native Americans are descended from, but it took a relatively short time for them to go all the way from Alaska down to Argentina, because this was a landmass, two continents as we categorize continents today, that had no humans and therefore a completely open field for human settlement. But this process was quite slow. Even if humans evolved 200,000 years ago, they only got out of Africa 70,000 years ago. They only got into cold climates much later than that, because being able to adapt to cold climates was itself a form of adaptive radiation, and there were ice ages and so forth that accelerated adaptive radiation. But as we get to the era of civilization, I'm going to show you an Iron Age timetable from Wikipedia. We had a Stone Age, which was 200,000 years ago, all the way up to the first metalworking. Then we had something called the Bronze Age, but I think that is overrated as a historical segment because it happened only in a few parts of the Eurasian landmass, mainly the Middle East and India. And many parts of the world went directly from the Stone Age to the Iron Age because the Bronze Age also had a major collapse. The Bronze Age collapse, which was amazingly about 750 years. So the Bronze Age was like the early parts of a technological disruption that was before the main event. Sort of like how the internet began in 1969, but the Netscape browser was only in 1995, and therefore the World Wide Web began in 1995. Or how mammals existed for 100 million years before the dinosaurs became extinct, but could only evolve into something larger than rodent-sized after the dinosaurs became extinct from that Cretaceous-Paleogene extinction event that I detailed in an earlier episode, which enabled adaptive radiation. So the Bronze Age was a preview period, in my view, and the Iron Age is when civilization finally proved that it was here to stay and could not be reversed. So this little chart over here indicates where the Iron Age took place based on what part of Eurasia. There was no Iron Age outside of Eurasia until much, much, much later, well into the second millennium AD, in fact. But the ancient Near East and South Asia were the first places to experience an Iron Age because these were the only two places where there was anything like a Bronze Age by this time for the most part. The Western Hemisphere had a Bronze Age a couple thousand years later, but that's different. Then other parts of Eurasia transitioned to the Iron Age because these technological capabilities became too compelling to ignore. People with iron weapons were automatically dominant over people that did not have iron weapons. People with iron pots and pans could cook a much greater variety of things and could store food that could be cooked later, so their survival was much more. Being an Iron Age civilization was much more compelling and competitive than being a pre-Iron Age civilization. Now, to view the advancement of civilization from 3200 BC to 1000 AD, I'm going to show you a fast-forwarded version of the Ali Bai video that is on YouTube and has many tens of millions of views. I'm only going to show the portion from 3200 BC up to 1000 AD. So 4,200 years, 42 centuries, at the speed of about 1 century per second, so you can view the advent of civilizations within the accelerating rate of change. Only in 3200 BC did we have anything more advanced than a village. Only then were there the first nation states and the first kingdoms, that too in only a very small fraction of the world. Even into the second millennium AD, there were many parts of the world that were not part of a nation state. And we're going to end it at 1000 AD rather than have it go all the way up to the present, because even that understates the accelerating rate of change after 1000 AD, which will be the focus of future episodes. So we go to this Ali Bai animation in fast forward.